Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
This podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, skillsconnect.co.uk, the world's leading children's development program for martial arts.
If you would like to know more about what the Motivated Martial Artists have lined up for the rest of this year, come along and see us at the UK Martial Arts Show in Doncaster Dome on the 2nd and 3rd of May, where we'll be on the main stage with our US partners, Skills Worldwide.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists podcast with me, Gavin Cook.
And me, Jackson White.
And today we've got Paul Barnett with us, joining us in the house. So hello Paul, how you doing?
How you doing? What an honour to be in the same room as you two, Taekwondo legends.
I think legends is more you, isn't it, really?
Legends.
Yeah, legends. So Paul is a professional karate instructor and is also quite a big promoter. He's currently promoting the UK Martial Arts Show for 2nd and 3rd of May this year. So I thought it would be a good opportunity now to get him on the show to talk about his backstory, how he got into martial arts and what sort of led him on sort of forward to move into the sort of martial arts show and stuff like that. So Jackson, do you may want to fire off with the first question?
Paul, it's a great pleasure to have you on the show. We've been trying to pin you down for a few months now, as you're aware. So we always kick off, and I normally get the privilege of doing this and asking our guests. So give us a little bit of your backstory, how you got into martial arts, a little bit about growing up, the area that you grew up in, and how that led you into martial arts.
Okay, can I just say first though, this is brilliant what you two are doing, because every martial artist wants to talk about themselves.
Yeah, sure, exactly, yeah.
And this gives us a chance. Okay, so where we are now, we're in Newton Solney, which is in Staffordshire. So I started around here, really. I started learning karate, saw a poster, like most people in the 80s, on a lamppost, I think it was, or in a shop, and just took karate up, really, with the great John Jepson. Well, before John, it was John Mills. There was two of them running the club. So John Mills and John Jepson at the time. So, but yeah, that's how I started, really. So just a once a week class, you know.
So tell us about your instructor then Paul.
I don't know about you two, but you walk into your first class. I think Jackson's a bit different because you must have grown up with it with your dad.
That's right, yeah.
And stuff. But I remember walking into my first class and seeing these guys in these suits, you know, doing all these moves. I think they were doing a kata actually. And I thought, wow, this looks great, you know. And I was no good at other sports. I got short legs, so I was no good at football and running and that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, took to this straight away. Loved it, absolutely loved it from my first class, you know. So.
What do you think it was? What do you think that initial attraction was when you first walked into that?
I think it was just doing something completely different. It was like, you know, what are we actually doing here? We're stood here stretching, kicking, you know. But you're looking at people who are really good. When you've got PE teachers at school, they'll say, right, we want you all to do a forwards roll, but the PE teacher never showed you, whereas the karate instructors could actually do it, you know. So you got these guys kicking to the head and stuff, and it's this looks great, you know. So yeah.
I know. I was just chatting this morning. You was talking about kicking. It sounds like kicking's quite a big thing for you. Was it the high kicks?
My teachers were good kickers, okay. You know. So and I think even now to this day, if I look at martial artists, although there's loads of talent out there with other styles like Wing Chun and that sort of stuff, I'm still impressed by a good side kick. Yeah. Rather than someone who can do sticky hands or whatever, you know. So that's me, but that's the way I've sort of grown up in martial arts, really. So.
Okay. So, talk us a little bit about your life growing up as a youngster. So you said you weren't very good at sports. When did you find out that you weren't good at sports?
Well, I was okay. I wasn't bad, but some people are athletic, aren't they? And some aren't. So when I started karate, it was dead apparent that my legs were hurting all the time throughout my belts up until I think I was about a brown belt then I got in the box splits. Okay. Because my dad was working away and he phoned up and I was like, Dad, I could do the box splits. And yeah, he wasn't bothered. He didn't care, you know. So, but I remember my legs hurting a lot. It was, you know, I think the old-fashioned methods of stretching and stuff might have had a bit to do with it. But
a lot of running though, wasn't it? I mean, in the early days, and certainly in our day, a lot of running around the hall. When you're going from wearing trainers to doing everything barefooted, aren't you, as well? So you get ankle pains and knee pains. And
I think I was one of the only juniors in our classes, so you know, it was all adults mainly. So the sparring as well, I was sparring with adults from a young age and stuff. So I was lucky to hit that old school stage, you know, and then see the new part. I remember my teacher sending us all to the cinema, giving out leaflets when the Karate Kid film was on.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and then we saw a massive, you know, influx of kids in his classes. He jumped on it pretty much straight away, really. You know, so we'd gone from a class of a dozen guys and a couple of kids, or a couple of teenagers, to all of a sudden he'd split his club and there's 30 kids in his classes, you know. So I was lucky to sort of go through the old school stage of, you know, press ups on the knuckles and fingertips, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, you know, pretty much that transition, I was there when it all changed as well, really.
Yeah, quite lucky because, you know, both Gavin and I, we went through the old school methodology.
Yeah.
And you know, my dad is of the mindset, and I'll give you a quick story about him. So we went to a shoe shop once to buy some shoes. Well, actually, I wanted some new Nike trainers when they first came out. And he said to me, I said, Dad, these are the ones I want. He looked at them, picked them up, the soles bent, and he said, what do you want trainers for? You're not even an athlete. And he walked over to the shoe bit where the soles were about 2 inches thick, and he said, if you can bend these, they're no good. And that was his mentality. So he was proper old school. So I could appreciate, you know, nowadays with children in the classes, you know, you've got to be really mindful of injuries, through growing injuries, all things that we know now through sports science, where I think probably 20, 30 years ago, you know, it was press ups on the knuckles, you know, sitting stance as long as you can, and then running around in the floor on bare feet. So yeah, it's good practice that things have changed.
Yeah, I mean, we just learnt the way that, you know, we were taught, the way that instructor was taught, weren't we? That was what happened. You know, they're just passing their methodologies onto us. How they got taught in the old school way.
Exactly.
Whereas in, you know,
I remember we went to, with my mum and dad, I went to the old Yugoslavia, which is Croatia now, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and the day before was my karate lesson. She was like, "You're not going tonight. You might get hurt." I'm like, "I am going. There's no way I'm missing it. I'll be fine." And I came back with a black eye. Now, I was only like 13.
Yeah.
Nowadays, in one of my classes, if one of the kids got a black eye, it would be panic stations.
Yeah. Health and safety nets everywhere.
You know, totally. But I come back and my mum's like, "Oh, blimey, Paul," you know. And but nowadays, I'd have had to deal with like a parent, or, you know, sit there and explain and, you know, hope that they don't do anything.
So going back to those early days, then, when you were the only youngsters in the club, what was it that sort of, you know, really gave you that bug to keep going? Because obviously a lot of kids would have been intimidated having lots of adults in there. Did you get to spar with them a lot?
Oh, I mean, our class, it was a Wednesday night, but I remember that there was different people from different styles would turn up, and purely because there wasn't much martial arts in Burton-on-Trent. So on a typical Wednesday, you'd get people that came from the local Kung Fu club, you'd get people that came from the local Taekwondo club. I think there was some Sakaido in Burton-on-Trent as well. So I'd be sparring with Kung Fu people, you know, Taekwondo practitioners. And two guys that stood out the most were two Shotokan black belts that used to come. I do Wadaroo.
Okay.
So it's a little bit tamer than Shotokan at the time, you know. And these guys were black belts, and sparring with those two, you know, was hard work. It was, you know, they'd hit you proper, you know, they really would. But so as I got better, I could, you know, I was a decent kicker, so these guys used to give us much back, but obviously they were fellas, you know, so
keep them away with a good side kick.
Yeah, I imagine they were holding back a little bit, you know. But
it doesn't feel like it at the time, though, does it? When you're younger, definitely not.
No, but it's nice that I've got those stories to tell people, you know. So I just hope now, you know, people that sort of train in my classes in 10 years' time, maybe they'll tell stories like this. You never know.
I'm sure they will. So how old were you when you achieved your first black belt?
I was 14 and a half. I remember I was quite young, you know.
Similar to sort of age. I mean, we were both 15. Well, no, I
was 10.
You were 10, no, so I was 15, yeah.
It was a slow start again.
Yeah, I remember at the time it was a big thing in Burton. I was a young black belt, you know, one of the youngest sort of black belts. And we did it with the British Karate Association. So the BK was and is one of the oldest associations in England.
Okay.
my examiners were Brian Seabright, who I'm still with the BKA, and Peter Considine.
Okay.
And it was I did it at Matlock. It was a big course, and if you two might remember, when you grade on courses, there was 300-400 people grading, and I thought, right, I knew I was the only one grading for black belt, so I thought we've got to go through all the red belts first, all the yellow belts, all the orange belts, all these Q grades, and I'll be last. So I've got at least 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
But no, I got called up first. So I had to grade in front of about 300-400 people on my own. I did. Honestly, on my own. And they all sat round the edge of this sports hall, with these panellists in front of me. And I did the grading and went outside and threw up. I think just nerves, So
I imagine in them days the grading was pretty brutal as well, was it?
It seemed to go pretty fast because it always does. When you're so nervous, it's just like tunnel vision, isn't it?
It's just a big blur.
You don't tend to sort of relax, or you just sort of go into like robot mode, I guess, don't you?
And was it was it sort of mainly katas in the grading, or was it always the katas?
Oh God, no! I mean, my instructor was pretty aware that I was a decent kicker, so we'd done all the the katas and all that sort of stuff, and then he got me. He said, "Right, Paul, I want you to hop and kick from that side of the room to that side of the room," which I could do.
Yeah.
With one leg, right? So I'm hopping and kicking with one leg all down the room, and I'm thinking, in a minute I'm going to have to turn and do my other leg. But I managed. I don't, the examiners must have thought, well, clearly he's got a favourite leg. They must have done. Yeah. But
I think we've all got one good side and one bad side, haven't we?
You got two bad sides, haven't you?
Yeah. My hips
are hips now.
Yeah, not what they used to be, mate.
So my only leg. My leg doesn't go as far up now.
Can you still kick now?
I'm still pretty flexible.
Yeah.
I'm still pretty flexible, but not to that level.
I think you just have to train differently as you get older, don't you? You just have to be conscious. I think you have to be aware, especially when you're a full-time instructor. You have to be aware of your body, and you have to think, well, you want longevity at the end of the day. You still want to be teaching when you're in your 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
You don't want to start smashing out. I always find it's when you first go into that cold dojo, and you've maybe not warmed up properly, and all of a sudden the kids are like wanting to demonstrate moves, and it's kind of hard to hold back sometimes. And you think what you should be doing is do the proper warm up before you do it. You don't, do you? You just go.
I think it's still important that when you've got students, you still got to show off a little bit.
Yeah.
You've got to. They need that. They
do. They need to sit.
That role model. They're looking at you as that inspiration.
Oh, totally. I think a lot of instructors slip up on that. I do. I think they go in as coaches, and rather than I think the kids still need something to look at and go, whoa.
Sure. Yeah.
So talk us through some of your competitive days then. When did you start getting involved into the competition side of martial arts?
I started off sort of a couple of local tournaments, but then we hit the FSKs pretty. It was like a big step. Mm-hmm. Everyone knew that the FSKs were the tournaments to go for, and I think it was mainly because you'd be put in the magazine in the rankings.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the main reasons. But also you'd go and you would fight the best.
Yeah.
You guarantee, if you're a black belt, you've got decent people in your category. And I don't know, I can't comment on competitions nowadays because I don't go to any.
Okay.
So, but I remember back in those days, if you got beat by someone good, it was like not bothered. It was... Mm-hmm. At least I fought that guy, and you were proud of the fact that you got beat by someone decent,
What are some of the names that you can recall?
I was a lightweight, believe it or not, right? So Brian Nelson was in my category. Okay. Tom Wynn was in my category. There was quite a few guys from Aston Laogar. I can't remember their first names, but Spider was one of them.
There was Maurice Young, wasn't there? And was it Maurice Young and? The Brown brothers, Beaver Brown and Connie Brown. I think they were the Laogar, a couple of Laogar.
Maybe
they were. I think
they were.
Joe Turney was another one.
Yeah.
So I was lucky to fight a couple of those guys, and I definitely got beat by them. I'd be lying if I said I'd be, that I won, because I didn't. But
as long as you put up a good fight,
yeah. So I was always going to get third or fourth, and I was aware of that. These guys were they were so good. But I was in the rankings for a good 4 or 5 years in the magazine, but. Again, I don't want to brag or anything like that because I'd be fibbing. I think you only had to win a few tours, get in the placings a few times and you'd stay in those rankings, But yeah, it was good. You know, when the black belt sections come on, everyone would come around the mats, but you'd have 30, 40 competitors.
Yeah.
You know?
Did, yeah.
Well, we used to say this all the time. So we really got competitive at about the age of 14 and 15. We were quite mature as young men. So we used to win our kids division, and then we'd go and enter into the men's lightweight.
Really?
Sometimes we'd place. Often we'd get beaten, but it was a good experience for us as 14, 15-year-old kids fighting, I suppose, lightweight. Well, we were lightweights at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up to be a light heavy. I'm probably about double X heavy now.
I was welterweight.
Welterweight, yeah. And you finally matured. But it was, growing up, being able to fight as a youngster against men. They've certainly got much more mature strength. They're a little bit more wary, and they're certainly mentally stronger. But we had youth and I suppose ignorance on our side, didn't we?
I think the good thing about turning up at those tournaments, you would see the people that you'd see in magazines as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So, or Bob's magazine, maybe Combat, but I think Martial Arts Illustrated more so was based around fighters, and so you'd go and see Alfie Lewis, you'd see Kevin Bruton turn up, and when those guys walked in, the room would stop. Everyone's eyes would go on those.
Yeah, well, it's
those
like
guys,
obviously Michael Page going on a little bit further on.
Yeah,
in time is the same one. Your heart would drop if you drew him. Right, I'm going to get hit with a 740 or something like that.
It'd be like his strawman punch bag on the ring for him, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Like
it's good to see that he's made that. Jump into is it Cage Warriors he fights in? Is it Cage Warriors?
Yeah, I think he recently lost a belt, I think, didn't he?
That's the life of a cage fighter, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
See, I wasn't around. I think my tournament days were done then. I'd gone into teaching by the time Michael Page was fighting.
Yeah.
I know the Winspers were kids when I'd just finished.
Yeah.
So Matt and James Winsper, and I think after they pretty much dominated the points as they got older, I think.
Okay.
So, but I remember them as kids.
Yeah. So going from the competition circuit, then so you pretty much retired from that, and then you went into your clubs. Obviously, you're a full time karate instructor. Tell us about that transition and how you sort of started to build your clubs up, and what took you from sort of a start-up into, how many schools have you got now?
At the minute, I've got 24 clubs.
24 clubs. Wow.
At my peak, I've had 56 clubs.
Wow.
So, but at the beginning, I was working like most people, had a job, and I'd have a few clubs at the weekend and stuff like that. And then I think I was telling you guys, just up the road, I had an accident, but I got quite a lot of money from it. And I thought, right, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a full-time teacher, and that money just gave me the push to okay, I'll do that. So that's what I did. So I opened, I think I had 4 clubs on a Saturday, and then 1 on a Monday, 1 on a Tuesday, 1 on a Wednesday. That was it for a long time.
Okay.
And then I got students up to a sort of black belt standard, brown belts, black belts, and I set them up with clubs, and that's when it sort of snowballed, and I opened more and more clubs. Right. So the decision then to sort of set people up, working under yourself, was the right decision, really. Yeah. Do
you still teach yourself now, or do you just?
I teach 9 clubs. 9 out of the 24 clubs, but I've got 7 people work for me. We say work for me, we work together. I'm not a very good boss. I couldn't ring someone up and say, hey, you've lost 5 students. I'm not like that, really. Because they're my friends as well.
Yeah. So, do you employ them, or are they sort of...
they sort their own tax out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We use a billing company. I'd advise any club starting up to use a billing company. I was a cash club for so long,
sure.
And I was totally against this monthly thing, and then I did it. I had a bad summer, and I thought, there's no way I'm doing cash for any. I can't do it any longer. You got a family and stuff like that, and you've got bills to pay, a house to pay. Yeah. It's time to make that change.
You need visibility of your revenue, don't you?
Yeah. So if anyone's listening and they're a cash club, and they, I did it for so long. And had so many students, but there was still a massive drop off.
Well, this is what we're trying to educate people with our sort of consultancy side of the business that we're now obviously branched into, is just to try and educate clubs on how to digitise and systemise their a lot of their processes, because no instructor wants to spend their Saturday afternoon doing paperwork. You should be able to turn up to your club, teach your club, go home, and everything should be done for you via software and systems, shouldn't it? So.
Yeah, if you've got people like yourselves to help you. I think that's one thing I lacked. I had to learn, from the beginning. I was making my own posters at the beginning, literally with stencils and stuff, using phone boxes,
stapling them to post and stuff.
Going to Promoter, and this is ordering 15 posters, which back then would cost you 60 quid. It was crazy what we did, to get a few students. And nowadays it's a lot easier. I think we spoke about this, the old methods of leaflets, and
still works, isn't it?
100%. I still go out and leaflet, and it's why shouldn't I? It's my own business. It won't hurt me. A couple of hours a day walking around the streets posting leaflets. Sure. If it gets me another 30 quid a month in the house, then why not? I'm not bothered. Absolutely. So you don't rely on Facebook to get new students, because it won't happen.
What would be your advice to instructors that wanting to scale their businesses? You've obviously looks like you've been very successful with how you've scaled it. What would be your advice from going maybe 1 to 5 clubs into 20? I
think if you've got the time to do it, there's no reason to hang about, and don't get complacent. It was one of my biggest mistakes when I had 15 people teaching at my height. I remember having a student count in 1 week of 900 and something attendances. Not students, but attendances. So people were cross-training.
Of course, yeah.
And, the worst thing I could possibly do was take my foot off the gas.
Yeah. It's so easy to do though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So easy to do.
It's like these big companies. Let's use sports branded companies like Nike, Adidas. It's not one guy running it, right? You've got a team. So, I think if it gets to that stage, then yes, start getting people doing other stuff for you. As long as you've got them under control a little bit.
Yeah.
You're always going to get people that will leave you.
Yeah.
And set up their own thing.
It's always the best ones that leave you.
Yeah, sometimes, I've had a few, I think every instructor's experienced people leaving them.
Yeah.
And it hurts.
It is hard, yeah.
Because you become emotionally invested, don't you, with your students? As a martial arts instructor, you are emotionally invested.
Yeah.
So, it does hurt.
But I think it happens to them years later as well.
Yeah.
And then they realise, they'll go, actually, what we did probably. I left my teacher, but it wasn't like that. We're still friends.
Yeah.
I could still ring him up now and say, do you want to come out tonight or something? We're still good friends. So I never left my teacher in that way at all. But I think if you're going to set up on your own and leave your team, do it the right way.
Do it the right way. I think the marketing side of it, like you said, you touched on, it is important, because I think what a lot of instructors do, and I'm just as bad for this as is probably Jackson, is you go through periods of growth and you start thinking, you take your foot off the gas because you think you've got enough students or whatever, and you're not marketing, and all of a sudden you'll go through a period of decline, and then you've got to start marketing. But that marketing takes a bit of time, because not everybody's ready to join. People might get a flyer and they might say, I'll start that in 6 months' time. Or
when the swimming lessons are finished, particularly with children these days, they have so many activities, don't they?
Yeah.
It's about the parents scheduling their different activities. It's about continuously having that marketing going on in the background to sustain the correct level of numbers that you need to sustain your business.
It's a strange one. You never know when people are going to pack up. And it's by using a billing company to collect you see when people pack up. If you're a cash club, you don't know when they pack up. You'll just see them in town 6 months later and go,
I haven't seen you for ages.
That's right, yeah. We lost quite a few students in January, but these last 2 weeks, I've signed up 29 new students.
It's funny, isn't it? 3
yesterday, 5 last night. Yeah. Bizarre.
Yeah.
And we've not really done any advertising.
But that could have been for marketing in January or even December.
Exactly, yeah. The best form of advertising to this day is still word of mouth. Yeah. It is. 2 weeks ago, it was half term, and I said to the kids in my class, one of the classes, I just randomly said it. I didn't plan on saying it. I said, look, it's half term next week. It's going to be quiet. If you want to bring a friend, bring a friend. And I think there was 2 kids turned up with their friends, a couple of friends, and they signed up the week after. So I think, remember, put things in place and stuff. Have lesson plans and
have a
stuff
schedule,
like
lesson plans, all those repeatable activities, and then you can measure what works and what doesn't work, and tweak and scale accordingly. Okay, moving on from the club piece then, Paul. Talk us through how you got involved with Bill the Superfoot Wallace.
Bill Wallace.
Legend.
Most people know me for working with Bill, or events. They don't know that I've actually got a full-time sort of karate sort of business as well. Yeah. But I was doing, I worked out pretty fast that I'd got quite a lot of spare time.
Okay.
I was teaching karate. In the daytime, it's like, well, what do I do now? I teach at schools.
More flyer drops.
Yeah, I don't like doing private lessons. I don't. I've never really sort of gelled to doing private lessons. So I started doing events. I did sporting events, boxing dinners first. I went to a couple and I spoke to the promoters and said, I don't want to jump on your toes, but I think I could do a couple of these in my area. So I did a boxing dinner with Frank Bruno. I did one with Nigel Benn, one with Steve Collins, one with Alan Minter. And then after that, I thought, why am I doing this when I should be doing ones with martial artists, right? So randomly, I picked up, obviously the most famous martial artist has to be Bill Superfoot Wallace, right? So I picked up his number off his website and I thought, I'm just going to ring him. So I rang him and I said, would you be interested in coming over, doing a bit of a tour? And he's very friendly, right? He's very, and he makes you feel dead comfy, Bill does. You can sit and talk to Bill for hours. And he said, but you'll need to book me for longer than a weekend, Paul. You need to book me for probably 2 weeks. Yeah. So, but I didn't. The first one, I think it was I'm sure it was a royal wedding weekend. It was 2011, sorry. I brought Bill over. It could have been a royal wedding. And Bill came over, and it was for 4 or 5 days, and we crammed loads of seminars into that. I think it was 12 seminars we did in 4 or 5 days, and we literally went round the country. As soon as I'd got Bill booked, people were ringing me and saying, "Are you the guy we see about booking Bill Wallace?" It snowballed pretty fast. It did, and that's when I met Bob. I took Bill up to Bob's. Bob put an advert in the magazine for me. He did. And I took Bill up there to his club as well.
Brilliant.
So,
what do you think? What is it you think about Bill Wallace that attracts so? I mean, everyone seems to love Bill Wallace, and he's got so many great stories.
He was such a good kicker. I mean, when I brought Bill back into the country, I'm sure. Well, he would mind me saying this, but he was 68, I think, and I'd not seen anything of Bill for a while, and I think it was mainly because he had his hip replacements and stuff like that. But I was totally wrong. He was still really active in America. Yeah. I mean, here's a guy who has a hip replacement and he's back out teaching 3 weeks later. Yeah, wow. People won't realise Bill's had 4 hip replacements.
Has he?
4. Yeah.
It's those stretching machines that he sells. And we had one of them, didn't we? I'm surprised we've not had hip replacements.
You can hear Bill creaking when he's stretching. But in total, I did 7 years with Bill. Yeah. And
just touring the UK or
16,
or touring worldwide?
Well, after the first tour, I rang him back up and said, can we go a bit further afield? Can we go to Ireland and Scotland? Would you be interested? Yeah. 16 tours we've done.
Wow.
16 tours. 10 seminars minimum each tour. So, and here's a guy. The first time Bill come over, I think the first club we went to was in Plymouth. And I thought, I'm going to join him. This is someone whose book I had, Stretching and Kicking by Bill Wallace. I'm going to join in the seminar. So I did the seminar. I couldn't walk, couldn't drive. So after that, I worked out, I can't do the seminars with Bill because I've got to drive him round. My legs were killing. But here's a guy who he hobbled in. If you watch Bill, he walks really funny. And Bill, he calls it the Wallace waddle, I think. And all of a sudden, he's stretching and he's kicking. It's just unbelievable. Even now. He still does the box splits. Yeah,
I mean, he's had some fantastic fights, hasn't he? I was like watching some on YouTube the other day. There was, I think you put out a post on Facebook, didn't you? Yeah. Leading up to the martial arts awards and stuff like that. Some.
Here's a guy he'll do a seminar, and he'll come out of the seminar, and he's still really critical of himself. He'll say, "How did I look?" Yeah. Like, why are you asking me? And he'll say, "Were my kicks okay? Did I look flexible enough, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's the sign of a guy who's passionate about what he does, and he's and
Detailed.
he'll never
Sounds very, very detailed.
he'll never shortchange. If you're an instructor, see, we did a tour last year, a small tour, and he said that's it. But just recently, I've been talking to him last few days, and he is going to do another tour.
Fantastic.
So probably later on in this year or maybe next year. But if you're an instructor, book him, because he'll never shortchange you.
Yeah.
If you book Bill for 2 hours, you'll get 3. So in fact, the students will be just crawling out the room. So he'll not. He's so passionate about what he does, and he'll, out of everyone, will train the hardest in that seminar.
Wow.
Right.
And how old is he now?
73, I think.
Wow.
He's 74 in December.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so you spoke a little bit about the how you got into your events through the boxing side. So tell us about some of the more memorable events that you've put on, or shows that you've put on.
I have to talk about the awards, because I'm the one responsible for all these people holding up these certificates in England, whether it be good or bad. I went up to Bob's with Bill, and I spoke to Bob, and it was one of those just random sentences. I said to Bob, "How come you've never done an awards evening for the magazine?" And he said, "Well, you organise it and we'll do it together."
Okay.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Literally the next week, I'd finished with Bill, I think it was a few days later, rang Bob back up, "Are you serious about that?" "Yeah, okay." So I drove back up, saw Bob in Huddersfield, and we sat down, we devised a plan, wrote a letter out, said, "Right, this is the letter that's going to get posted out to people." We went off, I said, you gather a list of names who you think would be deserving of awards.
Sure.
I'll do the same. We came back. We pretty much had a similar list. Probably Bob had an extra 10 people and I did different 10 people on top. And we got their names and addresses. We sent out the letters. And the first one was packed out. We were turning people away, So we did it with a meal. We thought, why shouldn't martial artists have this evening where they can go celebrate their success with their students, with their friends, with their the people they've done martial arts with.
Brilliant idea, isn't it?
Yeah, and it worked. And again, we've done, I think, 15 awards evenings.
Okay, is that the awards? Obviously, the ones that we went to this year, but you did them also at the martial arts show as well, didn't you?
We did. We started doing them in Burton-on-Trent, and then the awards led to the martial arts show.
Yeah.
And we did them at the back end of the martial arts show as well. So we do them in Doncaster as well.
Can you remember some of the names that were on that first award lineup?
Alfie Lewis, your dad,
My
Jackson,
Jackson,
Jackson White. There were so many decent people in that room. Yeah, it was. You could have shut the doors and just let people talk, because that's what they did.
Yeah.
I remember that first awards evening. It was a guy called Clifton Finley.
Yep.
Clifton rang me 1 week before the event. Now, bear in mind, no one had heard of me in martial arts, really, in karate or that. I'd been on the front cover of Fighters a couple of times, but it was at the back end, before, just about when Fighters was about done. So I wasn't well known at all.
I can't remember Fighters. Was that around in the days of Combat? There was Combat, wasn't there? And there was
martial arts.
Fighters. It was a decent magazine.
Yeah,
it was a decent magazine.
I remember Fighters.
So although I'd been in FSKs and so people didn't know me, so all of a sudden I'm the one organising these awards evenings, right? And you've got who's who in this room. And Clifton Finley rang me up and he said, "You're the organiser, aren't you?" I was like, "Yep." "Who am I sat next to?" I went, "Well, I've sat you next to this guy." I can't remember who. He went, hold on. We don't get on, right?
Okay.
So I presumed that these people got on. He said, "Well, who have you sat Alfie Lewis with next to?" And I won't say who at the time. I said, "Well, I've sat him next to this guy." He went, "Oh, no. They don't get on at all." I'm like,
Bad move.
Really? No, they don't get on. All of a sudden, Clifton put it out on Facebook. Paul is the one that's organising the event, and Paul's doing the seating plan, right?
No, okay.
I kid you not. within half an hour, I must have had 30, 40 texts, 40 phone calls. Who am I sat next to? And I had a right meltdown.
Yeah.
I did. I rang Bob, and Bob's like, having Bob as a business partner is brilliant, because I ring Bob and Bob's like, oh, don't worry, Paul. And that's it. Yeah. That's all I'll get from Bob. Just relax. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
But I got there in the end.
Yeah.
I remember that first awards evening. I think Sandy Holt presented the awards for us, and all you could see, if people remember, is me scuttling around in the back trying to get these certificates in order, because they were just mixed up.
It's so difficult. It's so
people don't appreciate it. Yeah, we run events for our kids, and we run big competitions for our club called Clash of the Clubs.
Clash of the Clubs.
And to the parents, and to the audience, it just seems like a smooth pond. But underneath that pond, we are running around at 1,000,000 miles an hour, organising.
Yeah.
Things are going wrong. We're rectifying on the spot. Constantly meeting all the new challenges. But to the audience, and everyone knows, do they? They don't understand the level of effort and work that goes in to put on these sort of events.
Yeah.
They really don't.
I think the last awards night at the martial arts show, there was 180 awards.
Yeah, I was on stage dishing them out with Bob.
Yeah,
and worked me into it.
I was framing everyone's certificates the night before.
Right,
it was crazy. Yeah. It was just crazy, because people book the night before. Believe it or not, martial artists leave things till last minute. They do, yeah. and people book the night before, and we don't like to say no. Of course we don't. So.
But that's why I texted you last night about this podcast. Jackson hates it because he's military. It's like, right, everything's got to be military personnel. So we'll book it the night before.
Yeah.
It's like,
but I consider, even to this day, I consider myself blessed and lucky that I get to hang out with. I know people like Scott Adkins. I know quite well now. Bill Wallace, obviously. Yeah. Everyone that's in the magazine, I know now because of the awards, pretty much. Yeah. So, and it's led on to my own like Alfie Lewis now. I train with Alfie, and which I've always wanted to train with Alfie.
Yeah, we need to get Alfie on the show, actually.
Definitely.
I'm just trying to get him.
Do you know what? With Alfie, I mean, he won't mind me saying this. When I first met Alfie, I was dead stand backish. I was thinking, this guy's scary, right? And he's totally the opposite. Alfie used to be a chef. He used to work for the council. All right, he's got that side of him, I guess, and but I don't think he has now. He's a really intelligent guy.
Yeah, it's like I said though. When a lot of the martial artists from our era, we used to look at them and think, Jesus, look at the attitude on them, look at the personality. They're just larger than life. But actually, now they're a little bit older, more mature. They've mellowed out, and I think
his mindset as a fighter was second to none. Yeah. And if you sit and have him on your podcast, you'll understand that where he used to put himself, because he's told me, and you think, okay, yeah, now I get it why you were
it's an attitude typical of any top athlete. You've got to have that 110% belief in yourself, and that can come out in all sorts of different ways. It can come out as arrogant, it can come out as confident, it can come out as overconfident. But if you don't believe in yourself in those tight situations at that elite athlete level, you're not going to win, are you? You're not going to be able to perform. So you've got to push that, and you've got to believe your own hype.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I think you're either. I think it's hard to instill that in someone. I think you're either a fighter or you're not. I was an okay fighter, but I didn't have that mindset that most of the top fighters had. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of it's all or nothing, isn't it? For a lot. It's no. I know when Jackie was in the squad, and Jackie was like, I'm going to retire now. I said, we can always go back training. Just go squad training. Just sort of retire from international competition. And he's like, I can't do that. I can't just go and train. I'm either going to go and train to win something, or I'm not going to go. Do something.
I'm the sort of guy. If I go out running, I go in the middle of the night where no one's out, because if I see someone in front of me, I have to catch them. Then I'll see someone else and I have to catch them. And from what starts off as a nice light run, I've come back and I've flogged myself. I've just got that mindset. I'm just too competitive.
Yeah.
So it's I can understand.
It's a blessing and a curse.
It is. It is. Yeah. So talk to us more then about this year's UK Martial Arts Show, because we're really excited because we're going to have a stand there this year.
Yeah, we're on the main stage.
And on the main stage. So just talk to us about how that came about, the martial arts.
So the show came from me and Bob sort of sat down and I said, why don't we do a show? Obviously, the other martial arts shows in England was Senai, and we didn't want to compete with those. We wanted something on a smaller sort of scale. and we just called it the UK Martial Arts Show.
Yeah.
Right. It's like why give it a strange name?
It works. It works.
Yeah, it just works.
That's what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. And there's obviously trade stands there. There's seminars. There's demonstrations on stage. We get the odd celebrity there, so you can have a photo with them and just see people that you'd not usually see. But it's grown into something which is just great,
And how many years now? How many years?
This is our 6th year.
6th year. Okay.
I remember doing the first one, and I'd got a lot of time on my hands, and I'd got a bit of spare cash, thanks to PPI. Right, I used to drive flash cars around, so I got this PPI check. I thought, what am I going to do with this? I thought, I would do a martial arts show. So
tell us some of the names you've got lined up for this year's show.
This year, again, this is something, me and Bob sit down and we'll say, right, okay, how do we move forward last year?
Yeah.
And
how have we become bigger than we were last year?
That's right, yeah. We've had Bill for the past 5 years. The year before we had Bill and Benny Kides.
Brilliant.
One of my best moments was, it has to go down, and I will get back to what you were asking me in a second.
That's all right.
I'm in a car with Benny Kides, Bill Wallace, and we're FaceTiming Scott Adkins. I mean, how good does that get? Yeah. So this year we've got Tiki Donovan, which for karate people is, it's pretty cool, really. Tiki doesn't do many seminars anymore, so if there's any karate people listening, jump on this. He's doing 2 classes, one on Saturday, one on Sunday.
Brilliant. And
he's looking forward to it. So Tiki's. There's like a main area where people teach. Alfie Lewis is teaching. Master Sken is teaching there. One of the biggest names I think we've got this year is the guy from Kickboxer, the movie.
Yeah, Tong Po.
Tong Po.
Yeah, we'll still call him that, I think, until the day he dies, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, he's like the original bad guy.
Yeah.
If you ever, I went and watched Kickboxer in the cinema with my friends, and all of a sudden, you've got Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dennis Alexio. Dennis Alexio is the champion. He's fighting this guy, he goes over to Thailand, and all of a sudden there's this boom in this room, and you've got this Thai boxer kicking this pillar.
Kicking the pillars, yeah.
And it's one of those moments in films which is, it's martial art films anyway. She's like, whoa. So, and I talk to this guy on the phone quite a lot now. Mohammed Kisi, his name is.
Okay.
And I still can't get it out of my head that it's Tong Po. I'm still quite intimidated by him. Although he's a really loving guy,
But he looked so menacing, didn't he, in Kickboxer? When you were a kid and you see, because you had Jean-Claude Van Damme, who was looking all pretty and ripped, and all of a sudden you got this evil-looking Thai boxer guy who just wanted to kill you. And as
That's
a kid,
right,
it's like, wow.
But I mean, the Thai fighters were renowned to being tough people, and still are. But it comes full circle, doesn't it? You got Brits will go over there, and the fighters like Liam Harrison and stuff will give it them back now. Right.
Yeah.
Ronnie Green was the first.
We had Ronnie on.
Yeah, we had Ronnie on, and we had Leon as well. Lee Green, his son.
Okay.
About some of his fights that he's just had over there. So no, it sounds really good, but certainly looking forward for the UK.
I think the mix you've got to have. You need for a good martial arts show, you need the odd celebrity sort of dropped in there so people can go get a picture and talk to them and stuff. You need decent teachers, doing seminars. You want a lot of shops where people can look around, which is we've struggled in the past. Last year we had the most stands we've ever had. This year it's looking like we're going to go past that as well. Okay. I think that was one of the things that we looked at when we always come out of the show, the martial arts show, and we won't sit back and go, "Well, that was great." The first thing we do is we say, "What did we mess up on?" or "What can we improve on?" And one of the things that we listen to, on Facebook, people saying, "Oh, it's a shame there wasn't more stands."
Yeah, well, people will be honest on social media, don't they? That's the thing. People say, "Oh, it's a great show."
I watched a blog on YouTube. I didn't realise this guy was going around, and I'm here at the martial arts show, and then he spoke outside afterwards, and I took everything down, wrote everything down, and thought, you know, rather than message him and say, "How dare you say that about our show?" I thought, no, this is this
good constructive criticism, isn't it?
Of course it is. Yeah, this is this guy. He's gone, and he's, you know, he wasn't bad what he was saying. But you know, he mentioned a few of the demonstrations could have been a bit better and stuff like that. So, you know, we then go back to the people who have asked to do demos. We're like, yeah, make sure you do a good demo.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, no pressure.
You're on our main stage. Yeah. Oh yeah, you two. You two have got it, you know. But you're doing kids skills and drills and stuff like that. Is that right?
Yeah. From our US partners, Skills Worldwide, we're bringing over Michael Evans and Clayton Macy. So they're the two. One is the CEO. One is one of the main instructors. So they're really coming to give a bit of a flavour of how to instruct the skills methodology, which is a kids contemporary martial art, basically focusing on 4 areas of development: emotional, intellectual, social and physical. So it's a totally new method. It helps with child retention in schools. It's just really getting down into the child psychology of martial arts, because as we know, martial arts was designed for men or adults. Yeah. So it's just tweaking your teaching methods to incorporate children and hopefully gain a little bit more retention by covering all the areas that children need to help them develop in. I
think it's definitely, we spoke about this, definitely something that is good, because I think there are a lot of teachers there that need just a little bit of direction.
Yeah, sure.
They do.
Well, the thing is, I mean, as an instructor, you're a mini-me of your own instructor, aren't you? Basically, you tend to use the same methodologies, and you tend to teach the same way that you were taught. And I think these days, with so many children in the classes, you do need to adapt. And you need to look for new ideas and new drills, and make sure that what you're teaching is to a degree age specific for that child's age of development. Which, you know, a lot of instructors don't. A lot of instructors just tend to crunch together the how they were taught and put their own sort of children's program together, or don't even have a children's program, just basically a watered down version of what they're teaching the adults really. So so I mean, we're quite excited to bring these guys over, aren't they? Because I mean, like I say, we did our US special and we went over there last month, and we were blown away with the amount of science and psychology that goes into each of the programs. You know, obviously Melody, you know, she's done a lot of studying in child development, child psychology. So all of the drills and all of the programs are put together in such a way that it's really going to enhance, you know, that specific age.
I think we're still trying to catch the Americans up, aren't we? I mean,
we are. I mean,
there's a martial arts centre nearly on every corner. Yes. You know, in America.
Well, I was chatting to Mike Evans last night via Skype, and he's got a club in centre New York, and he said there's 18 clubs around him within a sort of 3-4 mile radius. You know?
I think there's more and more full-time centres popping up in England.
Yeah, most definitely.
It's never appealed to me, really, the thought of someone kicking bags all day long, or you know, especially bags I've paid for. I'm like, it doesn't sit that well with me.
Short shelf life, haven't
it's got to be done right, though, hasn't it? I think it's got to be done right, and I think there's advantages and disadvantages for it. Obviously, it's great to have a full-time premises. You know, it looks nice, and these days with Facebook marketing and stuff like that, you can do lots of adverts for it. But at the same time, myself and Jackson, we both run our clubs out of village halls, school halls, community centres, things like that, which allows us to become mobile as well. So if all of a sudden,
you know, flexibility, doesn't it?
Exactly. If all of a sudden, you know, there's a bit of a downturn in a certain area, or if something happens, you can always restructure your business quite quickly. Where I think if you've got a full-time premises, if something could happen, there could be a fire in the area, anything could happen, and all of a sudden it stops people coming out.
Pros and cons, I think. Whichever model suits the individual, I think.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to wrap up now, Paul. But one question we always ask our guests: what advice would you give to a younger self, knowing what you know now and the experiences that you've had throughout your martial arts career?
I don't think I'd like to say it on I don't know really. I don't know. I think I've done everything okay.
Yeah.
You know, I've never ripped anyone off.
Yeah.
Fact.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be a student, someone buying tickets for the awards, I mean, the martial arts show, someone can come and train all day, an adult, all day with different people, and see loads of demonstrations for £45.
I was about to say how much are tickets and where can you get tickets from?
It's £20 entry or £25 on top to train as an adult, you know, and I think that's decent. to train all day with superstars of our sort of art or sport. So I don't think I'll change much. Maybe don't be as complacent, but no, not really. I think I've done everything okay. I think a self-employed martial artist was always going to struggle because it's a minority sport.
Sure.
But no, like I say, I could go to my grave knowing that I've never ripped anyone off and stuff.
It's having that integrity, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's things that we're trying to preach.
I think selling out, for black belt as well. I've never done that. We still, our students still go to the British Karate Association. We've still got our standards.
Yeah.
We still fail students.
Yeah.
So
it should be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't think I'd do anything different really.
Good. That's good advice.
It's refreshing to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Paul. Like I say, it's been great having you on, and
I've enjoyed talking about myself.
No, as instructors love it.
People want to hear about your story as well.
I hope people manage to get to the end. So
yeah. But the thing is, it's giving martial artists a platform to have a bit of a chat. And
okay, thanks again, Paul, for coming to the show.
Just before we wrap up, if people do want tickets for the martial arts
where do they get them from, Paul?
www.theukmas.co.uk, but it's quite hard to find, so you might be better off going, because it's a new website, going on Facebook, going to the UK Martial Arts Show page.
Thanks again, Paul.
No, thank you guys. Thanks ever so much.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your listening platform. It would be awesome if you could also leave us a review. We really appreciate your valued feedback.
Also, check out our website, themotivatedmartialartist.com. We also have a YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook page and Facebook group. All the links are available on the show notes below.
We'd like to thank again our show sponsors, skillsconnect.co.uk, the world's leading children's development programme for martial arts. If you're a martial arts school owner or instructor and are looking for some inspiration, ideas or drills for your children's classes, make sure you check the skills out.